Okay, we'll start. The Sikh in Chelik Tazayin, the second Sikh from Chelik Tazayin. This talks about, or the Parsha says that Yisro saw after in Kippur when the Moshe came down. Anyway, after that he saw what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing, and he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, "What are you doing? Why are you standing all day? And why are you sitting all day? The people are standing." And he said, and Moshe told him, "What I'm doing is people come to me to be judged, and I judge them." So Yisro said, "It's not good. They're going to get tired. You're going to get tired. It's not going to work. It's not good." Therefore, he gave him an advice. What you should do is you should actually teach them the Torah. That's true. But when it comes to judging the people, it shouldn't be you. You should appoint Sarei Alofim, Sarei Meir, Sarei Chamishim, and they should judge the small things. Anything that's big, then they'll come to you. And he said to him, "Ask the Eibishter if the Eibishter agrees," and the Eibishter agreed, and that's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. So the Rebbe says here like this: in the Haitik Sefer V'Etzelt, in this week's parsha, the Torah tells us, as when Yisro had gesehen, wie Moshe Rabbeinu sitzt, nicht mit hom in Beker ad Erev, when he saw Moshe Rabbeinu sitting, judging the people from morning to evening, hat zu ihm geteinet. He said to him, "Madua tiyeshel vadecha v'chol hom nitzav alechem in Beker ad Erev." Why are you sitting yourself? Everyone is standing all day. Novel people gamata gamom hazeh. You're going to get tired. They're going to get tired. And he gave him the eitzah, gave him eitzah, you shall see, which is the beginning of the parsha, where he tells him, "You shall see people. You shall choose people, see and choose people who are worthy of these positions, and they will be the ones that will be judging the Eden." As Meisha Zeluskaim Sore Alofim V'Geim Eretzvelon by Mishpatim B'Chol Eis, that you should judge, you should choose people, Sore Alofim, that they will judge the people always, normally. Only if the big things they'll bring to you. And he said, if you're going to behave that way, then you'll be able to stand, you last. And even the nation, everybody is going to be able to come b'shalom. This will work out. So, in other words, if not for him, Moshe Rabbeinu would have continued doing it himself. And it was he who saw that it's a problem, and he gave the advice, and it was accepted by David, and that's what Moshe did. You do it me, and then we know the question that Mephoshim had, the order says, they ask a very simple question. How's it possible? Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the trustworthy shepherd of Eden, himself was not afraid that the way he's behaving, the way he was doing till then, it could lead that the people will get tired. It wouldn't work. When er says nicht eingefallen, the Eitzah achip shoot, and he didn't think of the most simplest advice. To appoint judges that they will help judge the people. Only Yisro, who came for a short while, he understood the problem and he changed it, he gave the advice. Now the Rebbe says, there is an expression that people say, a gast for a while, zet for a mile. A guest for a while sees for a mile. And someone who's always here could sometimes miss, not see something even that's very simple. If you come from the outside, you could see it. So B'meila, that L'chura answers the question. But Yisro, as a guest, was able to assess the situation. You have a chas v'sholem to something like Moshe Rabbeinu, but chas v'sholem to say by Moshe Rabbeinu. The Eibishter himself chose him to be the shepherd of the Eden from the day he was born. Like it says in Medrash that Eibishter, when he was born, set him aside to be the Rei Yisrael, and Eibishter tested him with the sheep, etc., etc. So this was even before he became the actual leader of the Eden. When at this point, he already was actually the leader of the Eden for a Meshach Zman. So is it Shaychas to say, as I had nicht gewusst, he didn't know this till Yisro came. As much as there is an expression, a guest for a while sees for a mile, you can't say that by Moshe Rabbeinu. That Moshe Rabbeinu missed something so very simple. Is that von Guf verstandig from this itself, from this question itself, we understand. By Moshe is gekommen. By Moshe it came out. He felt. And from Moshe's standpoint, it is like a true. As allein can und noch mehr allein darf sich vernehmen mit Mishpat in the Mam. That Moshe Rabbeinu is able to, it's not a problem, he should do it himself to judge the Eden. And not only he is able to do it, But since he's able to do it, he has to do it. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu felt. And it's like a true. From Moshe's point of view, that's how it's supposed to be. That he should judge them themselves, side dover agodol, the big things, which actually Yisro also agreed that the big things he should judge. Und side dover akodden. And even small things, everything should be through him. Und von deswegen wird das nicht schatten, nicht Team und nicht Bnei Yisrael. And as Moshe saw it, it ain't going to hurt. Nothing's going to happen. It won't be a negative thing. It won't hurt him. It won't hurt the Yidden. And Moshe felt that this will make him stand and everybody will come b'shalom. This is a lotion that Yisro used if you listen to his advice. And the Rebbe is using this lotion on Moshe. That Moshe felt he doesn't need that seder. He can do it himself and things will be fine anyway. So the Rebbe didn't explain why and what, but he's saying we must say from the fact that there's a kasha, it makes no sense that Moshe missed this out. And Simon Moshe realized this, understood what Yisro wanted, but he felt it's wrong. He felt that he should continue the way he is. I choch and surface of them. Another proof. As Moshe that the way Moshe was doing till then, and he is the only one that did it from morning to night, is the right way according to Torah. So certainly it will avoid people getting tired. Yisro that if you're going to go on your way, people will get tired. A proof that it's not true. From Moshe's perspective, he should have continued the way it was before, and no one would get tired. How do we see it? You could bring a proof. From the Maimer Chazal, we can learn this out from what the Chazal say as the nomen Yeser or the Yisro in different Medrashim, that the name Yeser, because he had 7 names. So it says the name Yeser, or according to one opinion, his name Yisro, is Hashem She Yeser Parsha Achas B'Teirah, because Yisro added another Parsha to the Torah. The whole Parsha that he says, he gave him advice, so you shall see people who are deserving, etc., and appoint them as judges. He added that, the Gemara's, the Chazal's Lashon is that Yisro added that to the Torah. Strange Lashon. For them was Chazal sein Domedayik, She Yeser, Parsha Achas B'Teirah, from the Lashon of the Chazal that Yisro added a Parsha to the Torah, nicht as hat Zeiche given as the Parsha Nemro, the Nichtav al Yodei, the Lashon was Megefin B'negei andere Parshas in Torah. We find other places later where it says B'negei, the daughters of Tzlofchad, that really the Parsha that, the question that they asked, that they want to share in Eretz Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu answered. So it says, really, this was a parsha. They were zeicher that the parsha was written because of their request. By the case of Pesach Sheni, when they asked for Pesach Sheni, they were zeicher that the parsha of Pesach Sheni was written because of their request. Here it doesn't say that Yisro was zeicher that the parsha from Va'ata Sechze was written by him in the Torah. The Chazal used a lotion. He added something to the Torah. Is mashma that from the Torah's perspective, this parsha shouldn't have been there. This advice that he gave shouldn't have been there. Is verstandig as nicht nur ist durch Yisro in Nisgale geworden, the parsha from Va'ata Sechze. It comes out, that's not that through Yisro revealed this parsha. Like by the other cases, that they revealed the parsha. The parsha was going to be there anyway. Pesach Sheni was going to be said by the Eibusher anyway. But they were zeicher that it came through them. Here it's not like that. Here it's not only that he was Nisgale through him. Noch mehr, Yisro hat aufgetan kebiyochel, Yisro v'sofi in Torah. The lotion is he added something in the Torah. Durch him is in Torah zugekommen die Parsha from Va'ata Sechze. Through Yisro added a Parsha to the Torah of Va'ata Sechze. Was in Torah mitzad atzmai, is he free and given. In Torah itself, it wasn't there. And it was he who added it. That means mitzat the Torah, you don't need this whole advice that he gave. The Mele is moving from that we understand as Eide Yisro to Giton as in Torah so zukommen die Parsha. Before Yisro caused that this Parsha should be added to the Torah, is mitzat Torah's emes gufe. Is from the perspective of Torah, which is true. Nicht given the seder anoge from Va'ata Sechze. It was not the way he said the advice in this parsha of Va'ata Sechze to appoint judges. Nor as Moshe allein darf mishpiten the man bechol dover. That Moshe Rabbeinu should judge everybody in everything. And das ist der Tam, was Moshe Rabbeinu was calling yon Eistero, hat sich hazeh gefiert dem. And that's why Moshe behaved that way. Because according to the Torah, you have to do that way. There's only Yisro who came who added it. Es bleibt aber nicht verstandig wie doch. Now that we said we have to say that this is the right way, the kasha was, how did Moshe make a mistake? He didn't realize that it's not going to work. The answer is obviously Moshe felt it's going to work. And that's how it's supposed to be, it's going to work. Just Yisro came up with something. But the question is, the way we're saying isn't that the way Moshe saw it, the way he would behave still now, if he would continue, everything would be fine. So where did this idea come? Something new, different than it was, that there is a chash that Yisro had, he's afraid, as an Hogas Moshe can interfere into Novel Tibel. That Moshe, if you're going to continue this way, it'll come to make you tired, them tired. Sees covered as he said, it's going to be too hard for you. And Yisro came up with the idea, and the idea was accepted by the Eibishter, which basically means to say what Moshe said and what Moshe did was true. And what Yisro did was true. And they're both true. But how could that be? So we have to find how is it that what Moshe said, he felt that way, and nevertheless, Yisro's advice was true, and it's no contradiction. So the Rebbe explains like this. First, he gives a hakdama from another similar situation. This is that we explained the Negei Yisro, that Moshe Rabbeinu looked at it one way, and Yisro looked at it another way. And this is concerning what Yisro said here. What was here? Here it was, it says in the beginning of this part, the day after Yom Kippur, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second luchas. That's when this whole discussion with Yisro happened. That this thing that we said now here, that happened after the second luchas, after Yom Kippur. As Moshe Rabbeinu top geschaut sich und die Yiden nicht wie das kommt durch mit seiner Sissekana. As we said, Moshe Rabbeinu looked at himself. He evaluated and estimated himself and the Yiden that not like Yisro said. As a kennen the darfen gemischt werden von ihm allein that he could and they should be judged by him himself. Learn from him allein and learn only by him. What he's saying here, see, Yisro said that they should only learn from him the Torah and the big things. So Moshe Rabbeinu, we're saying, he evaluated himself not like Yisro, and what the Rebbe is saying further is what Yisro said. Not like Yisro, as I kennen und darfen gemischt werden von ihm allein und lernen von ihm allein nor chuke elokim v'tereisov u'mishpat dover hagadol. That Moshe Rabbeinu saw that he could judge them not like Yisro thinks he should only judge them, only teach them Torah, only judge the big things. Moshe Rabbeinu did not. As we said before, he felt that he could. So we're saying it here, that this was what Moshe Rabbeinu felt, and really it turned out differently. So we find that Rebbe says, he's ähnlich zu dem, was man gefindt früher. There's something similar with the same two sides we find in an earlier situation. Gleich noch die Aseres Adibris nach Luchas HaReshenis. This was after the second Luchas. We find right after the Luchas HaReshenis, which not doesn't mean when he gave the Luchas, it means when the Eibusha said what it says on the Luchas. We find a similar thing in Shayches to them, was Eden am geteinet concerning when the Eden complained and said, as a kennen nicht aushalten Herren nor noch keil Hashem elkeinoid. The Eibusha said the first two dibris. The Eden complained and said, they can't take it. They can't take it to hear from Hashem himself. Und am gebeten by Moshe, the atadaber aleinu. They asked Moshe, you speak. And what does it say in the Torah? What happened? Moshe, when he repeated this in Pasha Vaschanan, he says to the Eden, I was upset. I was upset. If you have a chance to hear from the Eibusha, I think you should hear from the Eibusha. Why do you hear from me? Hear from the Eibusha. And so what the pasuk says, as Moshe had geteinet, Rashi is mafarish. Moshe said, when he said the lashon va'at to daber aleinu, you told the Eden said to Moshe, you speak to us. Lashon zocha, when you speak to a man, you don't say at, you say ato. Why does it say at? So Rashi says, as at lashon nekeva meant, when he said the word at in the feminine expression, means he touched them eskeichik in nekeva. When you asked that I should say it instead of the Eibusha, you made my keach weak, like a female. I pained over you. You made my hands weak. And wouldn't it be better that you should learn from the Eibusha himself, not from me? But what did the Eibusha say? The Eibusha told Moshe, they're right. What they're requesting is right. There's haste, it means here like this. The way Moshe evaluated the Eden, they should want, Moshe expected them to want and able to learn the Torah, to hear from the Eibusha himself. But the Eibusha and the Eibusha accepted the time of the Eden, and he said, what they said was good. So this is al derech vido. That's mamish a similar thing to hear. The Eibusha at masken given to Atzasi. So here also we find Yisro, Moshe felt one way, Yisro felt different, and the Eibusha agreed with Yisro. We said that he given a parsha in Torah. The Eibusha agreed and became a parsha in Torah. So it's exact same as here. Here by Matan Torah, Moshe felt that they should hear from the Eibusha himself, and the Eibusha agreed that they should hear not from the Eibusha. Here also, Moshe felt he should be himself to teach, and Yisro and David agreed that Yisro did not. He said, so the same kasha we have over there also. The chiluk zwischen der Madrege von Eden, the Moshe and Mashiach gewinnt, as they can learn mit Yagvura. The difference by the Eden, between the Madrege of the Eden, the way Moshe evaluated their situation, that they could learn from David. And the Darge was their matzah bepel, and they actually were. As they died from learning from Moshe, actually David said they're right. They only could learn from Moshe. They're two extremes. Imagine, could learn from the Eibishter himself and learn from a human being. And how do we see that it's so far apart? Die verstandig von them was the idea wegen sehr Matzah, but by Moshe Peil given it Tashtem Eskechak in the Keva. You see that when Moshe heard that the Eden wanted to learn from him, he became very weak. Obviously, it's something very low. As far as he's concerned, you could learn very high. Why are you learning from me? And we see it bothered him, and he became very weak. So it's a jump. So the same question is, wie Sheiches zu sagen, as Moshe Rabbeinu, the Reya Mefanes for Klal Yisrael, how could you say, Moshe Rabbeinu, the shepherd and Mefanes of all Yidden, hat Ki'ilu nit mechaben gewinnt, und hat gedekach in der Aufschatzung von Zemer. He didn't manage to really estimate properly the matzav of the Eden. He thought that the Eden are higher and they could take, and really made a mistake. Chas v'sholem. He was a shepherd knows, the Moshe knew the matzav of the Eden. So why didn't he think of that? Obviously, he thought of it that they could listen. So he made a mistake, chas v'sholem. But that's not true. So we have the same kasha here as we have by us. Moshe didn't realize that he can't teach them all. The Eden are not ready to take everything from him, and they have to have other judges. Eine von the biurim was man can sagen in them. One of the biurim in this inyan of Moshe Rabbeinu by Matan Torah is like this. It says, nicht der Pshat, as Moshe Rabbeinu hat sich Torah given chas v'sholem and Opshat and the Matzah from Eden. Not chas v'sholem, Moshe made a mistake in evaluating the level of the Eden. But the kavanah in them is what it means is, as Moshe Rabbeinu cooked at Eden, the way Moshe Rabbeinu looks at Eden. And what does it mean, the way he looks at Eden? Because they stehen zusammen mit Moshe. When they're next to Moshe, and the Eden and Moshe together, Moshe looks at them the way he sees it through his eyes. They are really in a higher level. Yes. When they're next to Moshe, so Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, picks them up, and they're in a higher madrege, and they are ready to take the Torah from David himself. Moshe picks them up and brings them close to his level. On the Riber, therefore, just like he learned the Torah from David, he makes the Eden also being able to learn Piyagvura. So Moshe was right. Where he sees it, yeah, you could. So what's the time of the Eden that they said they can't? It's not because of a mistake. Eden said, those was they cannot learn in the this that you say that we could learn from David because we're next to you. He says their father was It's not that we're really in that madrege. It's because of you. You are there, so you pick us up to that madrege. On the Iber is Mevukish. So what are they asking? They will nemen Torah mit Zerek liasok. We want to absorb the Torah. If we take it because you picked us up, so it's not really us. It's really you within us. But we want to take the Torah, and we want to take it with our kelim of understanding. With the eigene keches. In the mind of the matzah is eine mitzvah. In our own keches, the way our keches are really by us. So even though you could do it, and Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to do it, but they felt it's not going to be them. Und auf dem hat der Rebbe gesagt, der Rebbe said they're right. Weil in dem Eisen wird die Torah bei den Niskabel werden und Nikot werden in Seir Pnimius. This will make the Torah be absorbed and penetrate in the Pnimius. And this is something it says in many, many sikhs and explaining that when someone does something that comes from him, it stays with him more. It gets absorbed more. But something comes Mamailo, so you get Bishas Maisa, but as when it wears off, it goes away. It says a lot of inyonim, it says the Sinyan. I want to take up too much time because it's a long sikha, so I'm not going to go into other examples, but we find it constantly. So according to this, Moshe Rabbeinu was right, and the Eden Taina was right, and David should accept it. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I could do it, and I think we should do it. I want to pick you up to my Madrek, and you will be able to. And the Eden Taina, we want to be on ourselves. Der mit, that when verstandig the Dik Alosh Natashtem as Keichi in the Keva. This will explain the Losh what he said. You weakened my Keach like a female. Now, really, what he meant to say was, you made me feel bad. I feel very bad that you don't want to listen to the Eibush. You want to hear me. So why does Rashi say the word Rashi does add the word shenitzta'arti aleichem, but mainly the taich is tsar. When you say I became like a nekeva, doesn't mean tsar. The real thing means weak. So the main thing he said is, you made me weak. Was weiß nicht nur auf ein Hergisch von Zahn nitzta'arti aleichem. Not only you feel tsar, nor is beiker madgish the meaning of chlishes. Mainly shows weakness. The second, see, Rashi says, you made me weak like a nekeva. Shenitzta'arti aleichem. I had tsar. Urefisem es yodi, and you made my hands weak. That's the main thing here. You made me weak. The lechura vipas dachlishes kecha shel Moshe. What does it mean? Moshe said you made me weak. When I heard what you're asking, that you want to hear from me, not from them, you made me weak. Why weak? I have tzad. I feel bad. I feel bad for you. Why you do? You're giving up something so good. Why that? But why does it say you made me weak? The Moshe's kayach, you made me weak. So the asbora is the Rebbe changes the whole thing around. He's trying to say what Moshe Rabbeinu was not saying, like how bad it is. Because you did something which I think is bad. You should listen to the Eibishter. Why you want to listen to me? Moshe Rabbeinu is explaining, in order for them to listen to him, it has to make him weak. And he says like this: Kedei Moshe Rabbeinu is a learner Torah, it didn't fit it seinom. In order for Moshe to learn to them the way they want, which means in their level, like it says, "Va'at tedaber aleinu," you talk to us. He had to lower himself from his madrege. For maybe as demos are made as I Moshe begilim it in ganzen take if Moshe speaks to them and his madrege is there fully, then Eden uvgeheben to madrege dagas Moshe, they will be elevated to the level of Moshe. As they darf learn and nit memedim from Moshe non piagvura. Then you'll have to learn from David. He says, just like I learned from David, I want you to learn from David. And it's all because of me. You want to learn it from me, not from David. That means because you're really in a lower level. So then if you're literally in a lower level, and for me to teach it to you, I have to lower myself in a lower level. The riber at Friegen muss sein Toshkecha Shemeshek in the cave. It has to be weak. Achlishus v'yirida madregas Moshe has to be a descent in Moshe's madrege. And of them, but the noch can sein a mamutza zwischen dem Eibisch und mit ihnen Eibisch zu geben sie Dvar Hashem. Then he could be the intermediate in between and bring the Dvar Hashem. So what he's saying is like this: Moshe Metzad his madrege is able to pick him up. And he wanted to pick him up to high madrege. Eibush says, the Eden Taina, we wanted that. So Eibush says, yeah, it's a good Taina. They want to take it in their case. And therefore, what has to be? Has to go through you. And you have to lower yourself. You have to lower yourself to their madrege that you should be able to bring it to them. Because if you're going to stay in your high madrege, you will not be able to give it to them in their lower madrege. Because every mamutza has to be in between. Has to have a little bit of him, a little bit. So you have to have some connection to the Eden. So that's what he said. You made me weak. It's not part of the complaint. That's part of what he's saying. What happened? Is this the complaint? Why should you want to be in the lower madrig and then I have to lower myself when you could take from the Eibishter? But the Eibishter felt that they're right because there'll be a chason if he does it the real way that they hear from the Eibishter. So the Eibishter agreed. So this is the first step when there was a discussion between the Eden and Moshe. Moshe looked at them from a higher madrege. He wanted to have them listen to the Eibishter, and happened that really they were lower and they wanted to take it with their cases. This is first by the Matan Torah. When es ist gekommen, das man as Moshe soll nehmen lernen Torah mit Eden. Now, after Matan Torah, now is the next step. The Eibishter did what he had to do before Matan Torah. Now they're going to learn from Moshe. Now they have to learn from Moshe after he received the Torah by Sinai from the Eibishter. Und noch ein Sinnes Luchas Shnis, wie man Kippurim, and in Kippur, the second Luchas, hat gerechnet. So now Moshe, when he thought to himself, as alle in Yonim from Torah darf and even hadn't been Yosef from him alone. So now everything of Torah they have to hear directly from him. Now from the Eibishter they can't hear already. It's already that stage is over. But now at least let her hear from him. It's not going to be the Eibishter because it's the next stage. But the best next thing is to hear it from him. Why from him? But bald as Moshe is there was since Moshe is the one that learned from the Eibishter himself. So nobody could give over the Dvar Hashem with the same strong light. Even more, he's the one that is between the Yidden and the Eibishter to bring him the Eibishter's words. Certainly when Moshe speaks, is the Eibishter speaking within his throat. He says, when Eden hadn't Torah mipi Moshe, so when Eden would listen to the Torah from Moshe, he says, Hazevi ze hadn't das mipi Agvura. So it's as close as you could get to hearing it from the Eibishter. And we see that the Loshen was dosi that diuk Loshen, the man for Moshe, the time of Yisro. You see the Loshen, the diuk of the Loshen, that Moshe answered Yisro's Tainai. Yisro's Tainai was, Favosar Aleini Shepet the man. Why are you yourself judging? So what did Moshe answer him? Lechatchila. Ki yovei alai ha'om lidresh elekim. Why am I doing it? Because they're coming to search for the Eibishter. The Rasha Taish Tesop Lishel Talmud Mipi Agvura. They're coming to learn from the Eibishter. What do you mean from the Eibishter? They're coming to learn from Moshe. So it says that those was he learned information. He says, Vitalmud Mipi Agvura. It's like from the Eibishter. So just like in the first stage, when the Eibishter himself, Moshe felt they should learn from the Eibishter. So here in the next stage, learn from me, which it'll be like you're learning from the Eibishter. Zeis Veid goes even further. Bibal das Moshe hebt to feed them. When they say Mekarev to Zayin Darge, Moshe will be with them. He picks them up, elevates them, and makes them close to his level. So they basically become part of him, and he received the Torah from the Eibishter. So they're part of that, and they also have the Torah from the Eibishter. And B'losh Nachsidus, it means like this: Moshe's Darge is Riyah. It says when Moshe learned the Torah, he learned the form of seeing. And at Mekabel when the Torah mipi Agvura and an Eifim von Riyah. It says in Chassidus that it's like you see. When you see something, it's the most truthful thing you could say. When you hear something and you understand something fine and good, nothing comes to seeing. When you see it, that's real. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he learned the Torah from David, it was not that he heard the Torah. He saw the Torah. To him, it was very real. So for Moshe learned it that way, is neisem dazu, was man kennt nicht zugleichen dem übernehmen als Sach von einem, was man das allein gesehen, so als Sach, was man nennt von einem, was das Blaze gehabt. So besides that, so since Moshe saw it, so if they hear it from Moshe, they're taking it from, we call it Kleidishan, someone who saw it. Imagine if you take it from the judges, where will they take it from Moshe? So then they only heard it. Oh, so they're already second. That's a further degree. It's more detached. When you see something, it's not the same as hearing. The real thing is seeing. So that's the first of all. So Moshe felt they should learn from him, because if they learn from him, they're learning from somebody who saw it. And he's able to pick them up to his level. They should see it also. Moshe Peil given the Chufa Eden. So Moshe Peil, when he'll elevate the Eden, for Moshe, that by them it should also be like they see it. Since they become part of Moshe, and Moshe saw it, they'll also see it. My high time, and therefore, was Eden Nemen, the Ashpos HaTeir information and Nathan from the now that the Eden Moshe was able to pick them up, and they should have the same level of learning, like he saw at Beria, they will see Beria. Kenun Darf nor Moshe Lein Lenet Teir Mit. So then Moshe is the only one. That's the only way it could happen. So Moshe could and should. Visus Aleze Mishpitten in alle Zeirin. He has to judge it himself. And the last, everything will be fine. So Moshe Rabbeinu looked at it, that's fine. It's possible. It'll work. Not in the level. With me, I'll deal with them, and it's very important that they become part of my level, and I'm able to pick up. Just like he said it the first time by Matan Torah, he said also the same thing. But David just said, no, they need to do it their level. But Moshe thought, okay, but now that it's the next level already, maybe now it will be second best, not David himself, but something similar will have taken from David. And that would be that Moshe Rabbeinu should teach him, and nothing will happen, nothing bad will happen. Das is the roof of Yisro. Now comes the next piece. This is what Yisro did. Yisro is Yekume me Arze. Yisro came from his land. He was a ger. He looked at Eden as they are. Not in a matzah wie Moshe heeft ze used to sein madrege. Not in level that Moshe, the way Moshe sees it, that he could pick him up to his madrege. No, wie ze stehen b'matzove mitzvah. He saw Lamato. He saw the Eden, the way they are. Und der Pfarrer hat geteilt, dass der Inje von Mishpeten Eden kann nicht sein durch Moshe allein. When it comes to judge Eden, he's to teach Torah, yeah, that he agreed. It says in Posik, you look in the Posik, he said he agreed. When he said what Moshe should do, so he said to him, here, what should you do? And teach him the Torah, tell him what to do. But you should make judges when you judge the people. So he saw that when it comes to judging the people, you can't expect that it should be the level of Moshe. Why? In the other thing of learning Torah, they come to learn, to know what to do. Scheiche zu sagen, dass das gut verpeilt und demult werden Eden aufgeben zu Dagas Mesha. The mere learning Torah, that could bring them to a higher madrege, and they could be from Moshe himself. Und lernen mit Dargos, they could learn on his level. Und der Fahrer, wie sagt der Moshe, Moshe, you take a teach him the Torah. Schaus, aber sie kommen wegen einem Mishpat und gehen sehr asokim. When they come to judge means between people, which means if there's a dispute, that's their business. It's not Torah. Wieso ist gleich ein Divrei Reveisam to straighten out their arguments? Seien sie doch da nicht in der Lome shel Moshe. That's not in the level. That's not Moshe's world. Here you can't expect in their own inyanim, which is not pure Torah, but it's the way Torah deals with their gashmazik things. You can't expect them to be elevated and reach that height madrege. That's what Yisro felt. Their matzav is over, as when the baladinim stay information. The truth is that even when they're being judged, and you have the two litigants standing in front of Moshe, but if they're in front of Moshe, that picked them up that they're not now so, their own business is not in the kudah here. They want to hear the psagdim, but they're not so involved in the gashmisdike part of it. When they're standing in front of Moshe, their whole outlook, even on what they came to talk about, is different. Yes, even the child understands. If he's in the same room with his teacher, with his melamed, he's at anders when he's for sich and he's vernommen seine Sachen. It's different than he's by himself and those own things. So the truth is, not like Yisro said, even by the mishpat they could. These to kennen von ihm nehmen und lernen the mishpat atei and from Moshe's Tage. Yes, they are able to take, even when it comes to judge their things, they could take it from Moshe in the Moshe's level. Von deswegen, or the Rabbi der Masken against Atzas Yisro. Nevertheless, Yisro felt not that the only things you can. The Rabbi agreed with Yisro. But what he's doing now is not just for now. He's setting a system that will be even later when they will enter Eretz Yisrael. When Moshe Rabbeinu is going to pass away and the nation will be on their own, you have to teach them then also. So then, then they will not learn from Moshe. And become elevated through him. So Torah was standing Dvar Hashem. So what Yisro wanted, that the Torah, which is always Dvar Hashem, it should also get to them, and then it won't be able to be through Moshe. So this concept that Moshe could teach him himself, meaning that he could elevate them, and they take the Torah, even the Mishpah they take in his way, is not going to be forever. And Moshe is he wanted to set up a system for later, and that only could be start off now. Make the judges, because that's what's going to happen, and they will bring the Dvar Hashem. So if it was looking just for now, maybe Moshe is right. Now, we still, whatever we're going to say, we always have a problem. Didn't Moshe understand this? So the Rebbe continues. Das ist der Tafel, was Moshe hat nicht gehalten, als allein darf das tun. And this is the reason why he didn't feel he has to do it. Because was besides the fact, as der Inyan as Yisro, so Mashana sein Seder an der Gosse, so bewornen der Matze von Nachal ist al Kusei. This whole idea that a Nossi Yisrael should act in a certain way, but he'll change it because he wants to make sure what's going to happen after his istalkas. That's not a regular thing. People don't do that. So besides that, for the way Moshe saw it, he didn't expect there should be a matzah when he's not going to be around. If not for what they did later, the sins, Moshe had gedacht einführen in Eretz Yisrael. Moshe would have taken Eretz Yisrael, and that's what given the Gula Shlemish and Achrer Golas. Would have been Gula, no Golas. But them would learn in Nadar Gefri, then learn in Riyah. So Moshe, when he looked at it the way it's supposed to be, the way it's from him, he could pick up, and no matter what, and he's not, first of all, doesn't think what he's supposed to do, Think what's going to happen after his because that's not Moshe's. See, we Yidden, Yisro, could look from Welt. That's from a Welt, they should look. Yeah, you could look at Stalkas, but not from Moshe's look. Besides that, Moshe Rabbeinu, as far as he's concerned, there's not going to be a stall because he's going to go into Eretz Yisrael. So the Pale, Eibusher agreed with Yisro. You got to set up a system that should be shaftim, and that's how the system will go. Now the Rebbe adds, even this, that we have to set up shaftim, and this will be for later when Moshe won't be there, also has to be set up, established through Moshe. Because Yisro told Moshe, because otherwise, the kasha will be, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu answer Yisro, you know what? We'll do it later. Now I'm around. Let me teach it myself. When I won't be here, then there will be shaftim. Why did he say you have to change it? So the Rebbe says because even what he's going to do to make sure for later, everything has to go through Moshe Rabbeinu. Anything has to do with Torah, any major movement has to go through Moshe. For whatever reason they had. That's why in Pirkei Avos we say Moshe Kibul Torah Mesinai. All the Mefarshim ask, is that the right way to write it? The main thing is who gave it. Should have said Hashem Nosnes HaTorah LeMoshe. No, Moshe Kibul is a major thing in Torah. Moshe has to receive it, and he says, "Varum alle Yonim from Torah, everything of Torah. Afilu din Yonim v'lachazani negayet to the Shpeter dikateres, everything that's negated to later generations. Mosen durch Moshe. Kol Masha Talmud Bosik Osit L'Chadash B'Torah Hakam Nit Moshe Mesinai. Whatever a Talmud, a proper Talmud, will make a chidush in Torah, was already said to Moshe. Why? Das heißt, means like this. Afila dos was a Talmud Bosik in a Shpeter digen dort is mechadish. A Talmud Bosik in a later generation makes a new din. Das is a chidush from the Talmud Bosik. He said something that's new. Is Eich dos Nit Moshe Mesinai. This is also given to Moshe. Why? When we bald the chidush from Talmud Bosik had this usgehor with nine seichel. Since the Talmud worked on it and figured this out with his own seichel, the Rebbe can't the chidush and zayin kechelik from Teiras Moshe. If it's his own svaras, how could it be part of Teiras Moshe? No Seiden as geht durch Moshe unless it Chatchila came through Moshe. Was demult is as var Hashem mamash in the words of Hashem. Das is was Yisro had gesagt to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why Yisro said to Moshe Rabbeinu when he started giving him the advice. He said, "Va'ato serze, you see." What should you see? Find these people, etc., etc. So Rasha says, what he said was, "Va'ata serze beruach hakodesh she'olecha," the ruach hakodesh that you have, which means Yisro was telling him, "I'm saying that it shouldn't be you; they should do it." But Moshe darf uiskleibon einstellen mit sein ruach hakodesh. Sorry, I love him. Moshe has to choose and has to set up the system with his ruach hakodesh, with his. That means Moshe's. These people was wel shefet sein der man which will judge the people. Durch them werd beworben to all days. And since Moshe started it, to make sure for all generations, Ados was Chachma Yisro. That this is the Chachom Smuchim Ishmi Pishad Moshe Rabbeinu that have smiche from one from another, going back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Seine Shefet Eden leit Psag Dim was that if they're gonna, it'll all come from their seichel. Is does the mishpat from Teiras Emes, Teiras Moshe. This is the mishpat of Torah. So it was negated to later. And he gave it to later, but he has to set it up. This will explain another diuk. The diuk he said, "Va'ata serze." Yisro said that you shall see people, etc., etc. The word serze is not the same. It should have said "Va'ata sire." Sire is the real seeing. Machze is another. Really, machze is in Aramaic. It's not the same level of sight. Why did he say "Va'ata serze"? He says like this: If Moshe would look at the situation with the way the Ruach HaKodesh is by him, which we said is a form of Riyah. Dargas Moshe b'miluah b'tokfa. Moshe Rabbeinu madrege complete. Darfman der zu sorry alof and gave it tonkum. You don't need sorrow. Moshe, the way he looked from his Ruach HaKodesh, he could sit and teach them. Not only could, he should. All in Yonim gehen durch Moshe beifun goloi. Goes through Moshe. Portion Moshe is the one that will actually teach them. When they're allein shefet alaman, he judges them. Them ganzen Namen, in alle Serien on them, everybody, in all their things, side over a godel, side over a cotton, big or small. Dafke durch them, but Moshe is the Ayiridim in Madrigos. Dafke Moshe realizes, looks down, lower than himself. He looks at from the glasses of Yisro, from the glasses of the people. And he's not in his real high Madrige. Al derech itashtem eskeiche kenal sivdalet. Like we said that, what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? If you want me to teach the Eden by a I have to lower myself. Here also, Moshe, in order to teach them, to set up the system of the Sheftim, he has to lower himself. As anstot Riyah is va'im nor terze. Instead of Riyah, he should have a lower madrege. Terze was his blaze that targum for Riyah. That's the targum of the word Riyah of seeing. Das heißt, wie der Linie von Riyah, Darges Moshe wird abgetan. What's targum? Targum is a translation. So it's the way the union of Riyah, which is Moshe's Darge, that abgetan gets translated and comes in Targum Loshen. In the Loshen of Targum, the Loshen Arami from Welt, Loshen of Aramish, which is not a Loshen HaKodesh, it's a Loshen of Welt. In other words, if he has to lower himself to the Welt level, and then he sees the need for doing this. The Loshen Achsidis, So there's used losh achorayim shel b'chinas riyah. That mitzerze is a achorayim of riyah. Zeter idem is einer mit zeratzmans of Moshe. Will lower himself, then he'll see that Yisro is right. But Mela darf sein der Inyan von this claim sorry Elofim, then you have to choose these officers. Und der Fahrer wird die Parasha angerufen, Hashem Yisro, Hashem she yeser Parasha achas b'teira. And that's why the Parasha is called Yisro. The whole Parasha is called Yisro. And it's because Yisro added the Parasha to Teira. The Rebbe was Medayik before. He added the Parasha to Teira. Not the Pshat. He was the one that had the schuz that a certain Parasha should set through him. He added it. By Mitzadarges, Meisha is an under-Seder. From Meisha himself, there would have been a different Seder. Und noch mehr, even more, in Teira Mitzad Atzme, Gilu Chochmas is, but you're looking from the Teira's perspective and the Teira itself, which is the Gilu of the Eibish's Chochma, was Vetnis Gala durch Meisha, that Meisha is Megala, is an under-Seder. It's not the Seder of having the Sorei Alofim. It's a Seder that Meisha teaches them. Yisro Atober Uvgiton, a Yisro in Teira. Yisro added something Yisro to the Teira. The Seder von Ata Sechze, but the Seder and not Teira. Through him came that even the Seder, Moshe Rabbeinu lowering himself, and Mamela seeing the way it is Eden and lower Madrig, and making these officers and all the Maila that it has, that it didn't take it in the Pnimius, and the Maila that this could bring Elakusais, the Divrei Torah, even later generations, happened through Yisro. That's the Maila of Yisro. But the Rebbe says, but still, so far what we said comes out, and they say that for not the Sechze is blaze an inyan from Yerida Chas v'Shalom. So sof, we have to do it for the purpose and the reason that Rebbe explained the whole Arich in the Sikha. But Lapel, it's a Yerida. It's lower. Moshe has to lower himself and even lower Madrege, and you have to do it. You have to do it, but it's still lower. Because they're Yidden and lower Madrege, and they need something between Moshe and them. So you have to lower it. So you have to do it, but it's a Yerida. Also Yerida. They needed, they couldn't hear from the Eibishter himself from their perspective, so there had to be a Yerida. So far, it's a need for it, but it's a need to have a Yerida. No, if you go deeper, it's not a Yerida. Dafke durch dem, was mit Beworten zum Hebtuf Aiden, was gefindt sich Mate beyese, nennt man dem Gewehe beyese. Verkehrt, by coming down and lowering himself to the level of the Eden the way they are, then you connect yourself to the highest. We know Kol HaYered, the Mate beyese, Kol HaGewehe beyese, Yered Mate beyese. This coming down to the Eden's lower Madrege, with the Welt cooked, with the Eden from the Mate cooked of them, by doing that, it's a Yeride, but the Yeride Tzerech Aliyah. And that is the Tachas, then you go to a higher Madrege. Al derech the Rebbe is Maimer Ayavuli, Mamor Ayavuli, Shlok the Frierike Rebbe says in Bossi Regani, Adaf get zu the Lavede de la Mata. From a darfon comes Samochama zu mit dem Gufen Nefesh Vaham is Daf get Lavede down here, where it's low. You have to fight with the real Mohammed, with the body, and with the Nefesh Vaham. Only for that, in Mavazres, the Eitzes Aichi Korim, David gives out the treasures which are most expensive, most precious. Was bis der Mohammed of Eisman till this war. If not for this war, you don't give it. You don't even show it. When they from them business Eitzes, and the main purpose why giving out these treasures is as is an onkom to the Pkidei Achayil, not it should reach to the leaders, to the generals, nor to the Anshe Achayil, to the soldiers, was film do the Mohammed Bepel, that they do the Mohammed. So here also, it has to be to the Eden all the way the lower level. And durch them, 40 is the Kavanah of the end of the Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu, and this accomplishes the Kavanah of the Eibishter too, that he wanted a Dira B'Tachteinim in the Meilam Hazeh Tachten Shin Tachten Matam, and in this world which is so low, nothing lower. But that's was I B'Shleimus of the Golu, the Bias Mashiach, the Kenu, the Kavanah Mamish. So the end is that after all, everything is it's a Yerida, but the Yerida really is an Aliyah. So now we look back and we see the picture of what Meshach meant and what Yisro meant and what David, why David was masking. But you see in the Sikha the way that, like always, the Rebbe takes something which seems to be like negative or lower and makes it higher. Always, the whole time Meshach hitashtem eskechi. It's a chasson, not a chasson. I have to lower myself. And everything. And okay, all right, good. So to the next start. So
L'chaim for Chabes Tevis.
what Chabes Shvat? Kol Tuv.
I do want to say this.
Rabbi Schapiro,
Yeah,
I have two questions.
yeah.
I don't understand Moshe's perspective and I don't understand Yisro's perspective. Moshe wanted to elevate the Eden to his level.
Yeah.
Okay, so he should have understand that sometimes a teacher, if he's not the fair the Mekablim, this gerät zu pathology.
No, he could. This is not like that. This was a case. Had he done it, they would have been good.
But he could. What Moshe could do by elevating them is to bring them in a bittul, in to narum the Torah, but
Yeah,
not
but-
the teaching of the Torah only.
Okay, good. It's not going to stay Nafnimius. So that's too studied in the Mosh. Like I'm going to give you other examples. The famous Sikha, Yankiv wanted them in the Megala the Ketz,
Yeah.
and David said no, made no, and he couldn't. What's his father was also saying he made a mistake. He wanted to be Megala the Ketz. The dad will give them a push that they can do.
Yeah.
David, what did David want? Yeah, you'll push them. So be Mamaila. It's not their own push. They shouldn't know the Ketz, and they should still do it. So they're both perspective. They're both the same. A lot of places you have these two perspectives.
Yeah, okay. No, but it comes to limit of Torah. Okay, that was verstehen Punkt.
Oh. Like it's yes Mitzrayim. But that's when it wears off, it goes away. That's a chiluk by the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. The Mishkan came a Milo, Beis Hamikdash came to Rabbi Samata. That stays. That's why that's I mean, a lot of places that ever talks in such a way.
And also, how did Yisro recognize that the Va'at Techze, that the appointing the judges should be dafti durch Moshe? Kommt doch von Midian, is outsider. Wird das der Herr?
Hat gewusst. Steht noch Siddur, ganz Seder Gestalschulus. He knew ganz Seder Gestalschulus. Elamai, in the beginning, he knew it says, he did Kol Aved Zorah Shabbeilum, because ganz Gestalschulus, he took it the wrong way. But when he became a ger, he had the highest diggers. His Chochmah was reached. Matan Torah was only because of him. If not for him coming, there wouldn't be Matan Torah. So the same thing. I mean, he was a great man. He understood this. He learned the Sikha.
Like Haman, he built poor who are Gerol.
Yeah.
Haman stand what Siddur.
All the way, yeah. You say a joke. If you look at the parsha, Yisro started talking. I'll read you the words. It says here. Okay. And he said to him, and he said no. Novel Tibel out. Then he started saying and then he said here Novel Tibel, Kamato, Shva Mekeli, now he gave him advice what to do. Why is the Ike Parsha start to Vata Serze? He said, yes, the Parsha of B'Teira is not from here. He much people took him before. Is all his discussion. The Vel Zot Avertel. To criticize is Nishkin Kunz. You give advice. That's where it starts. Vata Serze is positive. The tightness, yes, this is technisch, das technisch. Anyway, that's just a joke. Okay.
Shekayach.
Yeah, I agree with you.